Welcome to Life in Sirens, Behind and on the Scene, a podcast by first responders. We're your hosts, Sophie,
Jamie,
and Aubrey.
The content provided in this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. The views and opinions expressed by the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policies or positions of any medical institutions, emergency medical services, or healthcare organizations. Patient privacy is a top priority, and all discussions involving real-world emergency situations are de-identified and altered to ensure confidentiality. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional or your local EMS protocols before making any decisions regarding patient care or medical practices. Listener discretion is advised, as some topics may include discussions of real-world emergency situations.
Welcome to another episode of Life in Sirens. Today we are sitting down for a fireside chat, and we're going to talk about Airway. Tonight we're diving into stuff that actually matters, team dynamics, critical care pearls, and a little trivia to close things out. Speaking of teams, let's talk about that. So, leadership without making it a big thing. I like that. Just being intentional with everything we're doing.
Yeah. I like that a lot, especially with codes, respiratory failures, any kind of RSI attempt. Whenever you are present and someone is leading that call and they are clearly frantic and frazzled and they're
so
yelling
stressful.
and they're speaking really quickly, it stresses out the entire crew, and then people don't have faith in you, and so they start trying to take over the call.
Yep.
And that happens a lot, especially when you have a lot of responders. And we have the benefit to be able to run with an ALS fire department. And so we have a lot of paramedics on scene, and that's really useful when you need a lot of high acuity interventions. It can be really difficult if the medic leading the call is fumbling at all,
Right.
or is having a hard time.
Because somebody has to step in.
Yeah, is
But
having a hard time demanding it. But there's
medics, yeah.
so many cooks in the kitchen that it can be tough. But the trick is that you speak with intention, calmly and smoothly.
Yeah. Deliberate over bossy. It's not about
Absolutely
being aggressive. It's just about owning the scene.
Yes.
You're just so profoundly effective at your job that everyone's just yeah, we're doing this.
For sure. And it is not ego based. It's not
No.
I'm in charge of this. It is, hey guys, we're a team.
We're saving somebody.
One of the big things that I started doing, because I realized that one, we work in not necessarily anymore, but a male dominated field.
Yeah. And I think our service is a little bit different, but there's definitely places in this country that are still
we are
extremely male dominated.
I think we're 45% female at this point. But we work in a male dominated field. Sometimes it is hard to command a room and not come off bitchy or difficult
sucks.
or arrogant.
Yeah.
And so it's really not about ego. It's about being intentional and being direct. And so most of the time the way that happens is say your plan out loud. Just tell them, hey, this is what I would like to do. This is the patient that we have. This is my plan for the future. I want you to do this, you to do this. Walk through everything. And then before you make any big moves, do a timeout. Talk to everybody about what's going on. And most of the time, the only reason that people start talking over each other is because there's no clear direction.
Well, and that is in any form of leadership. When people don't know what your plan is as the lead or the leader, it just gets really stressful and scary, especially for even providers who aren't at the same scope or skill level as you. If you do not know, if your paramedic doesn't know what you're doing and say you're an EMT, that is stressful.
It's
Because then you're
terrifying.
dang. Do I have to? And I've been in those situations where, as an EMT, you have to carry the weight.
You're oh my gosh. Well, and people start looking at you, being what's going on?
You're I don't know.
And if you don't know what comes next, you can do one of two things. You either stand there with your hands in your pockets, which nobody likes the feeling of. So most of the time, that's not the option anyone chooses.
Why not?
Or you just start touching things.
Yeah.
Which most of the time is the option that everyone chooses.
Yeah, and it's not a good option.
Yeah. So it makes a huge difference to just be really intentional and know yourself, know your skill set, know if you have somebody on scene that has a better skill set than you do. And it is not an ego-based choice. It is what is going to be the most successful decision.
Yeah. I think that's a good point too. You don't have to be the highest level on scene or the highest rank on scene. Doesn't necessarily have to be doing the highest acuity interventions.
Yeah. And especially in the world of EMS, it's tough.
Yeah.
because your licensure and your rank do not always equate.
Yeah, and that is confusing.
And that's hard.
That's
and
different everywhere you go.
Yes, and arguably they should equate.
Yeah.
You should be the highest level of licensure as you climb rank. However, it's not always the case.
It's not a perfect world.
Yeah, it's not perfect. So that's not always the case. And there's a moment where like if you have a high rank, you have to make sure that your ego's not getting in the way, because there may be someone with a higher licensure on that scene that is a lower rank than you. And you have to be able to like delineate care to them and ask for input and things like that when you get in those situations. And people respect you way more for it if you can do that.
Yeah, and like knowing yourself, like, even as a supervisor, there may be a field medic that is able to, like, they've done this 3 times this week.
Yeah.
Just because you're the highest.
Okay, we have a medic that is technically part-time but works like double full-time hours. Like he just picks up like crazy, and he has probably done like 5 times the airways that I have done this year because of the frequency in which he works.
Exactly.
So like his proficiency is far higher than most of ours.
Yeah, and the calls we get in EMS are like 100% luck.
Yeah, you get like 1 acute call like a month sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I think that is important. Like sometimes how just where like your calls fall.
Yeah.
You know, is kind of where your proficiency lands too.
So basically what we're saying is leave your ego at the station.
It's way more fun when you do.
Yeah.
Like all of it's more enjoyable.
Like, even think about the last RSI we all did together. Like, it just went so well.
It did.
And like, there were so many medics on that scene, guys.
So many.
There were so many.
I think the only EMT on that scene was Ashley.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she did great too.
Oh, yeah,
and it was just like, that's like the prime example of like, you can have a bunch of cooks in the kitchen as long as like there's a plan and everybody knows what the plan is, then it's probably going to go well.
For sure. Yeah, you choose your leader and then you all fall in accordingly. And maybe the next call, someone else will be the leader. But like, it is nice when you have that trust with each other of, I know that everybody on this scene is competent.
Yeah.
And
so
like,
trust each other.
Yeah. And I'm going to ask you for input. You're going to ask me for input. Like it becomes a very cohesive moment. And I think leadership, especially in these high acuity calls, is honestly like our most important tool.
Yeah.
Because it can make or break a call, whether you're proficient or not. The leadership of it can make or break a call.
Well, and if you have any nervous Nancy's on your scene, like, that's something I've learned as, you know, the years have passed and I've done more calls that are like clinically very involved, is like, now that I am pretty confident and competent, I'm able to be like, okay, Joe over here is a little stressed. Let me give Joe a task that Joe knows he can do really well because he's going to make everybody else nervous, or like stuff like that.
Yes, build that confidence when you can sense that nervousness.
Yeah.
And I feel like leadership, especially like entering the flight world that you have been, the licensure scenario is so much more real.
Yeah.
Because you go into these facilities where you're doing interfacility transfers with high acuity patients, and you have to command a room and you have to take lead, but you have like physicians and NPs and like higher licensed professionals on that call, but you still have to be like, hey, this is what I need from you.
Yeah, which is wild.
Yeah, I think you learn the nuance of that. We had a flight yesterday. We're going to meet them. Patients started going downhill, went to local ER for stabilization, went ahead and landed them at that helipad. And then they came in and basically we're like, hey, we're here if you guys want to transfer this to a higher level of care. And they were like, yes, please, we do.
Get it out.
ER staff worked amazingly with the flight crew. They all coordinated super well. The flight crew was very respectful, but also like took lead. The physicians were also very respectful and worked like well, getting orders and blood and like all the things they needed. And it was a great example of taking lead of a call, but also being respectful of everybody else on scene. And everybody worked together really well. It was a cool thing to watch.
It's a collaboration. It's not a contest.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
That is what you see a lot. And I think genuinely our generation of medics is moving past this. But like I don't know. Like we had this weird era of like, I'm better than you. I'm doing it better than you because I'm a medic and I'm just better.
Yeah.
I'm like, calm down. I think we're coming out of that. I think that we really are. But just check yourself.
For sure.
And check your friends if they need to be checked.
Yes, yes, yes. Take care of everybody.
So let's bring things up a notch, I suppose,
like that.
And talk about, I say the critical care aspects of this, but really this is going to be available to any paramedic.
Yeah. It is a higher level of thinking, but it is not necessarily a higher level of licensure.
Yeah. So, here's the thing. We have decided that we need to take an Airway. What is the first thing we think of? I need to take this Airway. Period. What is the first thing we think of in our brains? Like,
Panic.
what is an Airway? Like, what does this mean?
Panic. Lay them flat. Scream.
Depending on where we are in our journey, that
No,
is possible.
If we've decided to take an Airway, my first thought is going to be, how do I optimize this situation? So how do I basically like get their oxygen as high as I possibly can and the reserves as full as I possibly can before this attempt?
Yeah. What else should we think about? Because I think that in our brains, we're like, airway, oxygen, ventilation, bing, bang, boom, that's it.
You mean there's other things attached to that?
It's almost like there is.
It's almost like it's the cardiopulmonary system. Yeah, you want to look at the patient's physiology. Like, how are we perfusing? What is our perfusion status? Are
Why
things
do we
going
need
well?
airway management in the first place?
Right? What is the etiology of this airway failure? What are we looking at? Is this a trauma? Is this medical? Are we neurogenic? Are we cardiogenic? Like, what is going on?
Yeah. And I think that RSI, we're kind of like changing what that means and what that looks like, which I don't know that we're changing it, but maybe we're just like evolving with the terminology.
Yeah, I think we started naming something that people were already kind of doing. Like with DSI.
Yeah.
It's like delayed sequence. I think that a lot of people were pushing sedation and waiting for that sedation to take place because nobody wants to be the person that intubates somebody who is paralyzed but not sedated.
Yeah, that's rude.
Yeah, it is quite rude.
Yeah, so more like resuscitation.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard this a lot online, that services are changing their terminology to resuscitative sequence intubation.
Ooh, I like that.
It is great. I love it too.
I love that.
So we need to make sure, obviously we've decided they need an airway, so they need an airway.
Yes.
We're not going to argue that, but now we need to make sure that we keep them alive.
Yeah.
During and after
we need to make sure they can survive the airway attempt.
Yeah, I think we look at an airway as the finish line.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys have been around since the beginning. We did a fireside chat, literally around a fire one time.
Oh, yeah. We'll do that again.
Yeah, we talked about an RSI that I had where I got really tunneled in on the airway because in my brain, like, that's what's killing us.
Yeah.
I got super tunneled in on the airway, and I neglected to acknowledge that their perfusion status was really just on the brink. Like, they were catecholamine depleted, and this RSI essentially was going to drop any kind of compensatory mechanisms they had, and I did not work through that. And so when we went ahead and paralyzed, we got the tube, but they very quickly bradyed down and coded. And that is something that is preventable if you can appropriately resuscitate.
Yeah.
Now, not everyone, you can't get every single person to like this beautiful place, but you do need to make an attempt to get them there.
Yeah, and I think it just comes down to like making it part of the process.
Absolutely.
Like, it just hadn't been. Like, airway was the finish line, and no one really taught us, right? It wasn't like a thing then.
We just raced it.
Yeah.
It was literally, it's like the faster that I can do this, the better chance they have.
They're going to live, yeah.
And that is not necessarily true.
Yeah.
There are very few times, actually, where the speed in which you provide that intervention is what's most important.
Yeah.
It is the management of your patient throughout the process of providing that intervention.
Yeah.
And there's few airways that speed is really your factor. Now, clearly, if you're in an anaphylactic airway, if you're in situations where like they're going to need a crike and an emergency crike, things like that, there are situations.
Yeah.
But majority of them are not that way.
No. I think we need to decide, like, how can we make this patient as stable as possible, even though they're very critical.
Yeah. So as far as like resuscitative measures that a lot of people do carry, what are the most common that we'll see?
Epi.
Yeah.
I think that's like our most common, like everybody in the country can make a dirty epi drip.
Yes, you will carry the most basic pressor.
Yeah.
A dirty epi drip. Other times,
options,
yeah, you have norepi, which has become pretty standard.
Yeah.
I feel like, as far as like your trauma, like blood, TXA, things like that, like manage your hemorrhaging.
Administer blood products before you RSI.
Yes.
Please
do.
For the love of God.
Please do. Yeah, if their pressure is in the tank and this is a trauma and it's because they're volume down,
yeah, bro,
you're not getting anywhere with that RSI. Yeah. I think it's still passes through a lot of people's minds. Like, it still slips through.
It does, because
Yeah.
when someone's not breathing or not breathing adequately, like we just like tunnel vision on that.
Yeah, because we are airway, breathing, circulation, unless we're circulation, airway, breathing. And then nobody really talks about when you go to what.
That is fair.
Unless it's a code.
Yeah.
You know, once they...
Unless we're already...
Yeah, once they code, we're like, you know what?
Easy.
Don't even worry about that airway. Circulation is the most important thing on the planet, and then we'll worry about the airway.
Yeah.
But while they're alive, we're like, please ignore their entire physiology. Just get the airway.
Yeah.
And I think
that's bizarre. What in the world
right?
were we thinking?
And that's the thought process that's changing. There's a podcast that we've talked about on here before. It's ICU EDU.
Yes.
By Sarah Kreger. And she talks a lot about, like, instead of following, like, algorithmic care, which, again, I feel like there's a place for, but instead of following an algorithmic care, to look at, like, critical thinking and use mental models and start looking at systems as linked instead of individual.
This is a whole person.
Yes, this is a whole person. And a lot of times we're like, all right, how do you manage, like, obstructive pulmonary disease? And then we forget that, like, a lot of times that means that they have pulmonary hypertension, which means that we have right-sided heart strain. And, like, there's a lot of things that go into all of these different disease processes.
Yeah.
That once we're dealing with, like, one acute scenario, we forget they're all connected.
And this is why it's called critical care. That's why we have critical care paramedics. It's not just for RSI. It's not just so you can RSI somebody.
Yeah.
It's not just so you can put a chest tube in.
Yeah, it's all the things.
It's because we just have to hone in, and we learn more complicated physiology and how to manage the more complicated physiology, and all of that matters.
For sure.
And I know this whole thing was all about keeping it simple. But that is the point. Like, if we just keep it simple, I know RSI, that sounds like a big step. But, like, keeping it simple just means, like, we slow down and we make sure we're checking all the boxes in the way of, like, are they going to survive this? Have we done the things necessary for them to survive this? What's the point of an airway if they just die immediately, right? Like,
and
keeping it simple.
Adding more systems does not necessarily complicate it.
No.
You just have to go through it, like, sequentially and figure out where your biggest problems are.
Here.
Absolutely. Use your checklist. Make sure you check all your boxes, especially when it comes to, like, your pre-oxygenation and getting all your equipment set and all of that, because these can just be really high stress scenarios. And so make sure that you have the cannula on at 15 liters and that your apneic oxygenation is in place and that you have good bagging techniques and that you're doing well there. Make sure that everything is set up, that you have your first attempt, you have your second attempt, you have your backup airway, like, you have all of these plans in place. And once you do, your chance of success in these scenarios is much higher.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's really complicated until you have that muscle memory. Because when you have the muscle memory, we've discussed this on the show before, is like you reduce that cognitive load. When I know exactly what my hands are going to be doing every single time, when I know what my action area is going to look like, when I know exactly what my partner is going to be doing every time that I am preparing to intubate, like, then I can start thinking more critically, because all the simple stuff is just, like, part of my brain now. And that's the simple part of it. Whether we are doing an RSI or we're simply providing an airway adjunct, if we do it every time, we're going to be sharp with it.
So now that we've talked about our basics, like position your patient, get your BVM skills up, right? Use adjuncts, be proficient in the tools you choose.
Use a checklist.
Yeah, use a checklist down to make sure that you remember that all the systems are connected. Now that we've done all of this, we are going to throw some trivia in here.
All right, trivia time. Loser buys gas station coffee.
Yeah, losers.
Okay, James, what percentage of airway complications are from BVM misuse?
Oh, it was much higher than we anticipated.
More than half.
Yeah, it was somewhere around 50%.
Yeah, 52%, which is insane. That's what I'm saying. Keep it simple.
Right, keep it simple.
Know how to use your BVM.
Right,
That's your first line.
Get that grip strength up.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so video laryngoscopy improves first pass success by how much?
Okay, this could be significant or insignificant depending on how you feel about statistics, but 19%.
Yeah, it depends on the amount you do.
Yeah.
But I feel like 19% is pretty
That's
significant.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
All right, James. iGel first attempt success in out-of-hospital cardiac arrest.
Oh, it is very high.
It's so
like
high.
In the 90s.
Yeah. Another one, 92%.
which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, so it's okay to use your eye gels, your
Absolutely.
Kings.
And we talk a lot about the intent of like eye gel, any kind of supraglottic airway use. The intent in it is not necessarily that it's your gold standard airway, but it is that compressions is your most important scenario in CPR.
Right.
It is the most important intervention that you're going to be doing. And a lot of times people will get tunnel visioned in the airway. They will pause compressions, or they'll do poor compressions, or they'll stop CPR altogether in order to get an airway.
Stopping things.
And it goes poorly. And so they found that if people use supraglottics that are very quick and easy to place, they won't stop CPR and they'll do it better. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about what to use. All right. So esophageal tube rates that are discovered at the ED. We didn't necessarily discuss this, but people are still bringing in esophageally intubated patients, which is unfortunate. What do you think that rate is?
I feel like it depends on who you're asking. If you ask an ER doctor, I feel like they're going to be like 100% of the time.
Yes, they'll be like 1 in every 2.
But it is actually much lower than maybe we're all thinking, but also still too high.
It's 1 in 212. And I think that, again, that is going to be very subjective regionally.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if your region is, it is mandatory to use end-tidal and waveform and all these things.
That's fair too.
It's probably far less frequent. But 1 in 212 nationwide is still pretty significant.
That's pretty crazy. All right. We talked about this. Ramping improves first pass success by...
It's not as high as I thought it was.
No, it's kind of disappointing. But it's still high.
It's still higher. It's 16 to 17%.
And it makes me wonder, like, is it because when we're doing this, we're doing a bunch of other things for success, right? I don't know.
Which would make sense. I also think that a patient's body habitus does influence how much ramping is going to make a difference.
Yeah.
You know, if your population or just the people that you've ended up intubating are really like skinny little grannies, ramping is not necessarily going to make as much of a difference as
especially if they're kyphotic.
Yes, as it is if you have someone with a really large body habitus.
Yeah.
Then it's going to be super important for you to ramp them.
Well, that was fun.
Yeah, I did enjoy that.
Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time, and keep it simple.
This has been Life in Sirens, produced by 3 nerds trying to bring you content that you might actually care about.